recording. Okay. So what I'm going to do is first, I'm just going to build an object. And we're going to keep it really simple. Let me actually come in and make sure that I'm in a number, because again, if I'm adding radiuses, we really need to start modeling or making sure we know the size of things. Because if I start adding a radius, and let's say, oh, I want a 1/4 inch radius there, but I've modeled it in some ridiculous size, you know, you can't just guess at what it is. So units, millimeters, that's what I thought. Inches. Okay, so we're just going to go here. We'll go 8. We'll go 5. Then we'll extrude it. We'll go out like that. And then I want a little bit of a form to this. So I'm going to come on here. Oh, that's not what I wanted to do. Discard. I want to do a sketch on here. And all I'm going to do is just a simple cut. For that, then I'm going to come back in. We'll exit out of the sketch. And let's see if I can do it here. We're going to come up and we are going to cut. Let's go surface. Cut with a surface. Nope. Where are we going here? There we go. We'll extrude that. Go the opposite way. Hit OK. Then we're going to go cut with surface. Cut that way. And then let's just hide the surface. Okay, so to start with, we're just going to use 3 different objects. So let's take this. Where's my feature? We're just going to go move and copy. So we want to copy it, because if I just say move, then it just moves that object. But if I say copy, and I can copy X number. So it's kind of like doing a linear pattern, but with a solid body. So that's what we're going to use for now. Okay, so we've got the body. So first things first, we want to add some radiuses. And we're going to use the fillet tool. And within the fillet tool, we've got a variety of different things that we can do. We can just, come on, constant size fillet. And what that means is I type in a number and that's the size. If I type in a 1/4 inch, it's a 1/4 inch. Here we can do variable size fillets. So if I wanted to go from a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch, then I can do that and give that variable radius. I can also come in and do what's face fillets. And what face fillets are is I can do it between faces. So here's a face, and I can put the radius in between there. Where that plays a bigger role, because right now you would say, well, why would I need to do that? I've got an edge here. That plays a bigger role when it comes time to put them into surfaces. I can also do what's called a full round fillet. And what that is let's say I want this whole front to be a bull nose. Well, I don't want to have to put a fillet here and kind of type in. I can just say this surface to this surface with this surface, make it a full round. We then have our items to select for filleting. Show selection toolbar, tangent propagation, which means that it's going to try to make it tangent. Again, if you see a dashed line, that represents tangency. If it's a solid line, that just means it's a point connection. So here you can see the solid line, and let's say I'm just going to toss in a quick radius here. There you can see the dashed line. Now, if you haven't done this before, I leave that on at all times, especially when I'm surface modeling. It helps me to quickly see if I've got a baby's butt or not. But what we do for that is we can go to Views, Hide, no, where is it? Display. There we go. Go to Display and go down, and tangent edges are visible, tangent edges are phantom, or tangent edges are removed. So visible, it just shows it just like anything else. So I wouldn't know if that's tangent or not unless I came in and checked the deviation analysis. And we'll get into that tool later, where it says 0, which means that there is no angle between this surface and this surface. That's kind of a pain. So again, if I just come down, View, Display, that tells me right off the bat. So let's delete that. Or no, let's just open that back up. So we have a few other things. Always leave full preview on, because that's a sure sign. If you don't see the preview, then that means that, hey, something's not quite right when I key it in. Okay, at what point is it going to go bad? Come on, really? There's no way it's going to do that. Whatever. Basically, with the preview, is if it doesn't show you the preview, it means that that radius is not going to go in, and there's more than likely some geometric issue or physics involved. Like, you know, you're asking for too big of a radius to go into an area that it just, you would never even be able to make that by hand. We also have the ability to do a symmetrical, asymmetrical, which means symmetrical is both sides are in the exact same point. Asymmetrical is one side is a different length than the other. Then if we come down to profile, this is where we've got circular, conic, and curvature continuous. For today, we're going to focus on circular and curvature continuous. We're not going to get so much down into partial edge parameters. So, oh, what just happened there? I don't want you. Go away. How do I get rid of that? There, it's gone. So let's do this. We're going to get rid of this. Now, let's say we just want radiuses on this. We don't care what it's going to look like. I'm just going to put radiuses on because you know what? My form is beautiful here and that's what I want. So I'm just going to come in and go into my radius tool, and I'm just going to grab all the, whoops. I'm just going to dump radiuses on everything. So here, very generic. There's not much dynamics to it. What you also get is called ball corners. And what ball corners means is exactly that. This is part of a ball. So if we come in and I open up our sketchbook, a lot of what we're doing when we use those standard radii is that we are creating a 3-point arc. So if I come in here, and this is the one surface, this is the next, and then I'm going to, well, here, let's do this. Let's just go here. So that's the corner, and we're going to put on a standard radius on there, which is a 3-point arc. So exactly what a 3-point arc is, if we zoom in, what it's going to do is just like in 2D drafting, it's going to create a 3-point arc. to make that corner round. What that means is 3 points. You've got the center diameter, you've got that point of the quadrant, and then you've got that point of the quadrant. That's what you're getting. There is a distinct separation of the surfaces. There's a clearly defined edge where it starts and where it ends. That also affects how it transitions into here. There's a hard break. What that plays into consideration is when highlights hit it. What does the highlight do on that surface? You've all been talked about concave, convex highlights and how those things are affected. Let's see if I can just pull up an image here. Okay, I'm not seeing something there. I was going to pull up a standard image that always pops up. So we know that what we're doing is going to affect our highlights, whatever type of radius we're using or things of that nature. Now, if this is a sphere, what you can see is what we're getting here is literally a quadrant of a sphere, because that's what's happening. You've got an arc here, an arc here, and an arc here, and it's trying to create the sphere. If I come in, and let me just see if I can do this. Surface, and we'll go untrimmed surface. Here, let me just try this. Oh, no, that's not what I wanted to do. Oh, where is it? Delete face. There we go. We just want to delete. So what I want to do is I want to see if I can untrim this and get it back to its actual ball shape. So there you can see, as I untrim it, it's literally part of a ball. Can you guys see that? So, and if you've ever looked at the highlights on a ball, then you know that it's kind of like this one big glob. So if we come back in, and I'll put those fillets all back on. And here, what I'm doing is I'm just selecting all the faces, and I'm putting the size of the radius that I want on it, but I'm letting it determine what happens in these corners. Because if this is an equal radius, this is an equal radius, and this is an equal radius, it's just going to try to create something that intersects there. Now, as we look at this, when doing highlights, and you're starting to look at radiuses and that, it's always good to come in, go to your options, and turn up the resolution. Because if you watch, if I zoom, I can't. If you watch that highlight, when I increase this all, hard to see, but it made it a little bit smoother. So, but here, that's the reason we call it a ball radius. Look at the highlight there. It's almost like a perfect little ball. But as I look at this part, you know, the highlight just kind of goes wherever it wants, you know, like it goes from here to here. And if I wanted to go down here, then I have to look at it this way. You can see that there's a little bit of a disconnect in there. You know, it's not very smooth. It's not very fluid. And even if I look at these radiuses, can anybody say that, hey, this radius is leading my eyes in a certain direction, or is it just radiuses? Now, these aren't bad radiuses to use. Usually I just put them in when it's internal stuff or when you can't notice anything. But even then, when you're doing a internal radius, or when you're using even small radiuses, depending on how you put them in, can really determine whether or not your object's going to shell or not, and or when you put them in. If you have a really, really tiny fillet somewhere and you try to shell the part, if that fillet can't be offset properly as it shells, it won't do it for you. So when you put the fillets in, where you put them in, and how you, in the order you put them in, plays a big role. So we've got this. Now, at the same time, let's say I'm just going to come in, but I want to put different sized fillets in areas because I feel that this one should be 1/4 of an inch. Oh, hold on, you know what? Let me go back here. I want to really show bad case scenarios. So I think this one should be 1/4 of an inch. And then up here, I'm going to make that 0.5. And okay, so I got a 1/4 inch here. Well, let me make this a 1/4 inch here too, because I didn't do that on the other side. Whoops, we want to go 1/4 inch. Okay, so now I've got that. We've got this, we've got this. Okay, oh, that looks like there's an edge on there, so let me, because I need to have radiuses on everything. I'll put one there and one there. And I think I want that to be larger. Or no, let's actually, we want that to be really tight. So we'll do that. Okay. So there. I've radiused it. Very dynamic. Much more so dynamic than this because I've got a variety of different types of radiuses. But we work on exterior models. We work on surface models. We work on highlights. You know, when you do a marker rendering or a sketch rendering and you've got those highlights in there and it looks sweet, well, that's the dynamic. That's what makes your product stand out in the sketch. Now, early on, sometimes your highlights are going to be unrealistic, and you're never going to be able to achieve them in your model because it's just not how the surfaces work. But at the same time, if you don't achieve the highlights to look nice, we can look here, and we're still using a standard 3-point radius. So again, it's a nice fat highlight, but if I go to the back, like it does this weird, it still looks like it's a corner, even though there's a radius there. And then if I look at this here, this radius goes down further than this radius. It's not very smooth. So that line doesn't line up with that. We've got these weird intersecting surfaces. Not very nice corners. So if I do this, you can kind of see as the radius comes down, it breaks off, it comes over here, and then it goes down here. Same as over here. It almost looks like the radius wants to go up here, but then you get this weird little mushroom head here. Same as if I rotate it around here. Now you can see I'm getting an absolutely different look here because they're just completely disconnected. Same as this, like I can't, like what direction does it want to go? There is no rhyme or reason of where it's going to go. Now, highlights serve many purposes. One is to give a form direction. A highlight can give the form, you know, where that highlight goes can give it a sense of speed. It can be used to create, or the radiuses, the way they flow, to draw your eyes to specific areas. It can be used that when it's standing on a shelf in a sea of commodities, how well refined is your highlights? It can also give a sense of aggressiveness, utilitarian. emotional, depending on what that highlight is doing or how it's reflecting. Is it a harsh highlight? Is it a soft? Is it pinpoint? Where does it lie? So we always want to make sure that we can somehow have a psychological reason for why we're putting it in. And with that, we want to make sure that we have some kind of control. So let's take a slightly different approach, and we can achieve two different things. So I'm gonna estimate where the radiuses went. So let me just see something here. What ones did I put in first? Okay, so because I want to duplicate so we can see side by side. So we've got that radius. So what we'll do is I'm going to take a little bit more of a methodical approach. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to say, okay, I want this radius to be wrapping all the way around at the top. I don't want it to be coming down this way. So I'm going to put that in there. We'll put that in there. Let's just get it a little bit bigger. So right now, what I know is going to happen is when it comes time to put the next radius in, I've got things in nicely. I've put both edges in at the same time, not as an afterthought. I'm going to be able to have it wrap around. Now, for this, if we look here, we dumped that radius in, and then we did this radius. And it almost feels as if it wants to wrap around, or or do something, but it doesn't know what to do. So if I come back in now and I'm going to say, okay, for this one, I'm going to say I want this just to wrap around up the top. So my next step is I'm going to put these radiuses, here and here. Now this is no different than if you're sketching. This is how you do it. I want this to have radiuses flow. So if this is my model, I may be refining my concept. So I'm going to put these radiuses in separate than these front ones. And the reason for that is because as I look at this, because you're still working off a loose, rough sketch. As I look at this, I may say, oh, you know what? I don't want that. I want those to be 0.4, whatever, for whatever reason. Oh, shoot, I hate when it does that. Rebuild. Now I'm going to say, okay, I want this larger radius up top. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to put the radius on. Now, here's something that you can see happen. So I've done this, but then I've still ended up with crap, ugly radiuses. Well, the reason for that is that this size of radius cannot wrap around on a smaller radius because it's too large. So, and that's basically what it's going to look like when you 3D print or you model it. It's going to have this weird shape and look to it, and your highlights are going to end up that way. So this is where it comes down to knowing, hey, geometrically, if I want this top radius to wrap around here smoothly, then this top radius has to be smaller than this bottom radius. So what one controls it? So let's come back in and we'll just edit this. And we'll get this down to a 0.5. Because 0.5 is what I want. But now this is smaller. So let's get this down to 0.65. Now what's happened is it can wrap around cleanly. Now the big difference on that is as I rotate this, you can kind of see how it goes, and then it wraps around the corner. It knows what direction it wants to go. You can see it automatically starts going that way. Still not perfectly beautiful radiuses, but there we've got that kind of top box. Now, let's say, and I would say it has somewhat direction, because they all do, But let's say we want to accelerate that direction. You know, I want to draw a person's eye from the front, from the back to the front clearly. So what I can then do is change the order that I put the radiuses in and the size of the radiuses. So I'm going to come in and we're going to make our little soapbox derby car. We're going to do 1.5. We'll add in a radius at the back. We'll make that less. And then we're going to now add radiuses on this edge and this edge. Hey, look at that. It looks like an Audi TT. We'll just reduce that a little bit. So now I've got the exact same base form, but I'm controlling the direction. So now, as you can see, that radius is wrapping around, and you can also see the speed that it goes at. So there, it's got a long way to go. So as it wraps around that arc, it goes at a slower speed. But here, it's got a small distance to go, so it goes quicker. Are you guys, is this making sense? Are you seeing what I'm saying? Okay, so SolidWorks is not the best rendering package. They have not, you know, lighting is lighting. Who really cares? So what I always do, and especially with the Direct Connect now, again, I build, I evaluate, I refine. When we start getting into more complex surface modeling, you'll see me do this method a lot. I wouldn't do this here because I know exactly what's happening, but I'll come in, I'll send it to Keyshot, and again, I'm evaluating highlights and reflections. So I need to toss a material on there that is something that I want, because this doesn't help me evaluate anything. So my go-to is from one of my favorite cars, Candy Apple Red Corvette. Where's my paint? There's my metallic, my candy coat, and then we're just going to toss it on here. So now, I'm not really looking at reflections. I'm just looking at see the highlights go. So you can see here where we had the kind of the foo bars, like those highlights. And now this is much more realistic than what you would see in SolidWorks. But you can see here, the way that meets, there's definitely a hard edge, and then you can see it roll into there. But even as we look at the corners, it doesn't know what it wants to do. For me, this looks like, so if I was putting a highlight on with a water paint brush or a water brush, this looks like I dropped spots because there's a highlight here, there's a highlight here, there's a highlight here. The highlight stops here. You know, if I come to this corner, there's 3 highlights, all with the same environment. But if I come over here now, you're still going to get it, but at least, wait, at least as it goes, you can see here where it's thin, it gets thicker, and it flows around. So now there's still, and part of this is because they're not curvature, you're still always going to get that ball spot. But as a whole, the radiuses kind of go in a nicer fashion. So you can see here, we wanted this one to wrap around. So if I'm here, pay attention to these radiuses and these corners. If I wrap around, it goes nice and smooth. So you can kind of see how it goes there, it transitions, and then it goes that way. If I come over here and I do the exact same rotations, not nearly as pretty. You know, and it almost looks like it's a chamfered edge, which it wasn't because we had radiuses in there. Now, if we come and look at this one, we've given it even more clear direction. So you can kind of see here, and I was talking about in SolidWorks, so there it goes, hold on. As I rotate it around, You can kind of see how it goes and it slowly tapers off. And it just overall, you know, we're controlling the directions that we want it to go in. Now, if we take this a step further, and we're not worried about reflections yet. Let's go and take this a step further. We're going to come back into here. What was I just going to do? I was just going to do something else. Let us come back and shoot. How do I do that? You know what? Let me take this. We're going to delete those. And then I want to take this. I'm going to move and copy bodies. We're going to move and copy that. I'm going to copy it once. And we'll drag that all the way down here. There. Now, what we can do that's even more dynamic, and I want to do it in comparison to these. So we're going to take a slightly different approach. And that's, I want your eye. So right now with these ones, the highlight really encompasses and stands off and says, hey, draw your eyes to here. That's the radiuses. When you look at this, theoretically, you're going to look at that face. So I've captured that face. If I've got something in there like a GUI or details or buttons, your eyes are automatically drawn inward. Feel free to call bullshit if you don't see what I'm seeing or if what I'm explaining isn't something that you recognize, okay? Because design is subjective. But there is some science behind it. But it's always hard to explain that science to people that think it's, well, I don't see it. But they do subconsciously. Now, if we look at this one, by applying the radiuses differently, we've still got that same form. We're drawing our eyes from the front to the back. Or sorry, from the back to the front. And we're kind of saying, hey, look at this. That's the key elements. So now we're going to change it a little bit different. And we'll do something a little bit more dynamic. So I still want to have it come down like this. So what I'm going to do is I'll add this fillet in here. And then the next that we will do is, I want it to wrap around this way like I did with the other one. So we'll do that. Now what I'm going to do, so I can toss in a simple radius here, and it's going to wrap all the way around. That's going to be too big, but that's fine. So by doing that, here, your eyes want to go here, but then it wants to drop off at the back end. On this one, much like what we did here, you're capturing it within this box because your eyes are naturally following around this and creating its perimeter. And then we're having it come down and drop off this way. Now, even more so, one of the commands that we can do is, let me just delete that one, is we'll come in and we'll do a fillet. But for this, we want to make it even more dynamic because we want the front to taper off and we want the back to be maybe a little bit more dynamic. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a variable radius. And variable radius is exactly that. It's going to ask you to key in a variety of numbers. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to select this, and I'm going to select this, and you can see where it's adding numbers. So I'm just going to come along and select everything. So it looks a whole lot busy. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to say at the beginning, I want to assign that with a, let's go with 0.25. Now you see that it adds a 0.25 all the way around because I have absolutely no other numbers assigned. What I can then do is say, well, hey, at this point where it starts wrapping around, I want that to be 0.45. Now you can see that it's transitioned to a 0.45 and it's coming back down there. Then I'm going to say, hey, here I want it to be 0.5, or you know what, let's make it more dramatic, 0.6. Here I want it to be 0.6 as well. Here we'll make that the 0.45, same as on the other side. And we can play with this more. So let me, you know what, let me go 0.6. 0.75. Okay, so we've got it all away, and you can play with this a whole lot of different ways. So let's go accept. So now you can see we're giving it an even more dynamic look, where we're directing, and you can see the highlights too are doing something completely different because you're getting fat back here, but then it's tapering down here. So that's accelerating. It's kind of like taking a large body of water, you know, flowing it through something and then all of a sudden tapering it down. What happens? The water runs faster as it gets tighter. So the highlight's going to run faster. So what that is doing, and you got to keep in mind, well, my object sits there. Yes, but we as people walk around objects. Or if it's an automotive, there's a reason why they spend a lot of time on highlights, because the car is constantly moving. Or if you want to differentiate yourself on a shelf of products, that form plays a big factor in it. Now, form, by definition, defines the highlights. So if you look at something and you're like, well, that's just ugly. Well, the first thing you're seeing is not only the forms, but you're also seeing the light reflecting off of those forms and what they do. So if there's a lack of refinement and the lights are obtrusive or the highlights are obtrusive, you know, that happens. Now, we, especially as you guys get further in your career, can sit there and point out and say, well, this highlight doesn't match up with this edge, this doesn't do this, this doesn't, this is why it looks bad. Well, the average consumer can't articulate that. They just don't like it. So that's where we play with the psychology of lights, the psychology of visuals, and emotions to invoke responses based off of our forms. So if I come back now and let's update KeyShot. You can see even more so, but you still see we've got our tangent edges here. You can still see how there's that flat edge there. But you can see that the highlight is doing something very different. Let me just, there we go. If I get that edge. Here, here you can see that that highlight is like a tube. It's a constant, where this one is thinner at the front, thicker at the back. That's acceleration. That's the same as when we start talking about splines or when you start talking about curves. And the reason for that is that back here, where it slows down, is a bigger radius. Back here, it's a smaller radius. Have you guys talked about accelerated curves when you're sketching and why they're called accelerated curves and the math behind it? Is that a yes or a no? No. Okay. So let's just do a quick thing with that. I'm going to do it in Sketchbook to make life easy. Make life easy, but it'll look like crap. So let's hide that. We're going to create that. So let's say we draw a line. No, that's not going to work. Hold on a second here. Just give me 1 second. where's my pencil? That's not it. Okay. You know what? We'll just do it in SolidWorks here. So I'll do a quick sketch here. So an accelerated curve is that. And what defines an accelerated curve is the speed or the rate of curvature. So if I come in and I'm just going to draw a spline. Am I in my sketch? So we've talked about this before. Here's a curve. I call this an accelerated curve. It's flat back here, or more flat, and then starts to really curve around here. If we pull up our curvature combs on it, you can see here it speeds up a little bit back here, but then it accelerates and it goes like that. That's what's called the rate of curvature. And the reason it's a rate of curvature is because this is basically splines, ship splines, are made of circles sliced together. So if I come here and I do this and I do that, you can see that a portion of this is a circle. But then if I come back here and I do this, another portion is a different circle. And what happens is back here, or well, for this one in the middle is going to be the largest circle. But then as it gets closer and closer and closer, the radius gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And think about physics. What happens when you're just walking normally on a flat surface, and then all of a sudden there becomes a slope, and that slope gets steeper and steeper and steeper? You pick up pace. You start walking faster because of the accelerated surfaces. That's what makes your highlights go fast and slow. That's why, let me just delete this. That's why if we look at the key shot, they go slow here and then speed up and get down. And now what's even making this more look like it's an accelerated curve is, so here it accelerates when it wraps around the corner. But here it's accelerating because fat to thin. Okay. Questions? Okay. It's 7:10. Do we want to take a break, come back at 7:30? And when I mean break, nap. If you're going to nap, set an alarm. How's that sound?
I like that idea.
Okay. As always, remind me to hit record when I come back. Okay. So far everything we've done has been the 3-point radiuses, which as we've seen, kind of gives us that defining edge where that radius starts and stops. So what we're going to do now is...
Hey, Travis, you aren't presenting.
Damn it, I was so close! So close to doing it right.
There you go.
There we go. So, we've defined that we can see that edge. And it's not, it just really breaks things in. It's not very smooth. We figured out how to manipulate highlights in the directions that we want it to go, but there's still this cross in this direction that isn't very nice. So what I've done is I've created a few more shapes that we'll use, as we go through. But the first thing I want to do is I want to just show what it looks like if by using these, I simply turn them into curvature continuous radiuses without actually explaining what they are quite yet. And we'll see if we can notice the difference. So we're going to come in, we'll go edit. And we're just going to make that curvature continuous. It's jumping around because I'm going back in my history tree here. So then we'll do this one, we'll go edit. Jump back there. Curvature continuous. And again, curvature continuous radiuses are nice, but it's understanding when you want to use them, why you need to use them, you know, and are they even worth it? Like, what are they doing? I think I've mentioned to everyone before where there are times where, you know, you can get so dialed in to what you're doing that you can't even see the details, because on the screen you're looking at 1 millimeter versus in real life you're never going to see it that close. So let me see, it doesn't like this, but I probably have to drop these down. I made that one way too small. Oh no, no, no. What's happening here? I signed the wrong fillet somewhere. There we go. So what I'm doing there is curvature continuous radiuses flow different. So what I'm doing is I'm just evening out, because you can see here where if I had this one at the point 4 and then I dropped this one down too small, it was doing that weird kink. So I just want to get them so that they're going with a nice smooth transition. So we're going to do that, and then that's 0.4, and then that'll be 0.5. This is where much easier to model this in half and then mirror it over, so I'm not clicking as many buttons. So let's just hit accept. So now we've got this model with curvature continuous, and this model here is just with the normal radii. So if we go, and let me just hide some of these that we're not using anymore. There we go. So if we go to a top view, we can start seeing, what the, oh, really? That just sucks. Okay, hold on. I just did something really stupid there because of the way that I modeled all these things up. Okay, so we're going to come back here and we'll adjust this one. So we got that. Well, no, you know what? You're still going to be able to see the difference. Let me just check something here. Yeah. So we'll just use this in comparison to the other. So if we come in and we re-update KeyShot, and where I want us to look at is, we saw that hard edge. So we're going to see if we're going to get that same hard edge as we did before. Let's go like this. This may not work because they're too different. Okay, so see here, we get that harsh highlight. That's exactly where, and you can kind of see where that radius starts and ends and goes all the way across. Now, if you look at this one, it has a smoother gradual transition to it. You can kind of see where it gets a little bit thicker here. Stop licking my hand. It gets a little thicker here, but then it smoothly, slowly transitions into that highlight. So it's not as harsh looking. That's because what's happening is we've told it to do a completely different curvature, or sorry, completely different transition from one point to the next. And what that means is curvature continuous is if we come here, we said that what we've got is surface, surface, surface. And we have said at this point, rotate. Now, what a curvature continuous does, and it's hard to see on those because they're flat surfaces, but in these situations where we've got flat surfaces, what is happening is we've got our line here, or you know what, let's just go all the way across and do that. So we got that, and we've got our point here. And then we're going to come in, and what we're saying is, okay, hey, I want to put a radius on here, and I still want tangency. So, but what I want to be done is that for a certain period of time, I want you to follow this line. So the radius will come like this, and it'll follow this for a certain period of time. And I'm just going to use an ellipse because that kind of helps makes things easier to see. And then I'm going to want you to then start doing the radius. So it kind of flows in a little bit. And with that, when we look at that's kind of a hard example, but let's see if I can do it differently here. Wherein if I say I've got that curve there, and I've got this curve here, if this is the center of where my radius is going to go, what it's going to do is for a certain distance, it's going to follow here first. So it's going to be like that, and it's going to go along that natural line of that curve. Same as here, that natural line, and you can control it, but then at this point here is where it's going to blend. So this is where you kind of get your circle point here. And then this slowly transitions from this tight radius that you want into this larger curve. So does that make sense? Okay, let me show it one different way just to help reinforce it. So we're going to go to the top plane. We're going to do sketch. And what I'm going to do here is assume that these are surfaces, no different. I'm going to come in and I'm going to draw a style spline. We'll go like this, like this, like this, like that. And then I'm going to draw another one over here. So what I want to do is, whatever that transition is, I want it to be follow this curve for a certain amount and then follow this for a certain amount. So if I come in and I'm just going to use this spline, I'll draw my line here. and here. What I'm going to do is take the control points, select on this line, and I'm going to say I don't want it to be tangent, I want it to be curvature continuous. So that's where you get these little C plus equal. Now, same as this one, I'm going to come in here. I'll do that. We'll do that, and we'll add that there. So now I can control, you can kind of see, hey, it's following along this curve's profile before it hits this one. And I can control how much. So by nature, if I control it that much, in order to get down here, it's got to start diving in. But I can then control what that radius is going to look like or do. So if we exit out of that, and we're going to dive into here, and let me see if I can do a better job of getting this to show. If I'm going to put just a big fillet on here, circular. Then we'll come and put another fillet on here. Nope. Clear. This one, though, we're going to make it curvature. And you can see, I don't know if you can see, but watch these lines as they move. So this is curvature. That's circular. So did you see how they adjusted a little bit there? What that was doing is it was changing and going from having the hard point and going straight into a 3-inch radius into, we're going to follow this a little bit further and this a little bit further. So let's just do that. Now there's a whole lot of ways we can adjust it and play with it a little bit more, and we'll get down into that another time. There's also ways to do this when it becomes very complex, that the standard plug and play radius tools don't work. Then you start doing surface geometry. And again, as I've taught before, the more control you want, the more adjustments you want to do, the more control you have to have. So there are times where I'll cut out these surfaces, put in my curves, trim things back, generate splines, and then I'll do a loft. But then I can truly adjust the shapes and the looks that I want. That's at a level of refinement that, you know, I do if I'm handing off engineering database, or if someone's paying me for, hey, this model has to look like what we want in production. So let's curvature continuous. There, we'll do that. Now let's see if I'm able to show this clearly in KeyShot. Okay, so we should be seeing these two here. So again, so here you can kind of see, and it's not the greatest example, but if you look here, you can see again, and you can always see where that hard edge is. Same as if I go down here, it's not good to go down like that, but you're going to see that same hard edge down there. But here, it has a tendency to transition a little bit more and flow into that. It's not as hard of an edge until your highlight gets down to more of the bottom piece. Now, this really comes into factor when we're playing with much more complicated surfaces, but can you guys see the difference, or is it not showing up for you? It shows well? Okay. And again, you don't have to use curvature continuous radiuses. It depends on what you're doing. And it depends on the look and the style that you're going for. You know, when you're doing automotive bodies, yes, every surface transition has to be curvature continuous. It's not just about radiuses, it's about surfaces as a whole. So that's kind of how it affects radii. Now, one thing I want to dive in here quickly is let's see how it affects, let's turn that off, on surfaces. So I'm going to come in and let's hide everything in here. And again, we're going to make pretty simple surfaces here. And what I'm going to do is, oh, we'll do that. Oh, you know what? That's not going to work visually. So we're going to do that. And then we're going to come in. I'll do another spline. And we will make these surfaces, extrude them both. Okay. So this is where it becomes really important because we want to do a smooth transition from there to there. We've got two separate things. Now, variety of ways we can do that. Again, we talked about point of contact. So if I say, let's do a lofted surface, and we're going to go from here to here. That is point of contact. You're going to see that crease because all we've told it is to go from one end to the next end. Now, if we come in and edit that, and let's say start and end constraints. I don't remember where we are here, but we're going to make it tangent to face. So we're going to say we want that to be tangent. And then on the other end, we want that to be tangent as well. So now we've got that. Let me just do something. Well, I won't be able to do it. Hold on. I can do this, though. There. All right. So that gave us tangency. Now what we can do is we can do the exact same thing, and we're going to do a loft again. We're going to go from here to here, but the difference is the end constraints, we're going to make them curvature. What happened here? We're going to go loft. From there to there. Okay. I don't know why it's not updating that. The end section for a loft must either be planar or 3D faces or surfaces. A 3D section that does not bound a face or surface cannot be used. Interesting. I wonder if that's because I did a copy in that. Okay, so let's do this then. We're going to just modify something here. I'm going to come back. I'm going to grab this sketch and that sketch. I'm going to then take that sketch and I'm going to extrude it, but I'm going to extrude it in a different direction. And we'll do that. There. Okay, so now let's see if I did this right. We're going to come in and we're going to do a lofted surface, and we're going to go from there to there. There, now it's working. And we're going to make it curvature. Now, you can see by doing it curvature, it's changed the surface a little bit. There's a different gap. But the key thing is, and let me stitch these quickly. We're going to knit that, hit that. You can see they both got dotted lines. So let's knit this. We're going to go knit, knit, knit. But, wait, did that whole thing knit? Better not have. What the hey? There. There. Okay. So you can see by adding the curvature, we've changed the shape because it needs to follow here. Let's just go to a side view. On the tangent one, it has that hard line. It just flows into there and goes straight into the arc. Where on here, it follows that curve a little bit and then comes in and goes down to the next one. Now, if I come in and let's say one way I can show you this is, let's go to evaluate. It's called zebra stripes. What this does, let me turn up the tolerance. What you can see is if I do this, hold on, let me, there we go. If I do this, you can see over here where there's a jog. Wait, what one is my curvature continuous? This one. So see here where it comes across and it's kind of a sharp edge going into one or the other? That's because there's a harsh break. It stops and starts. Where over here, there's a smooth transition. That's because it follows the curvature. Let me just come back in here. We're going to do this. Dog, stop. You can obviously see there's a disconnect here because the two don't match up. So if we take this now, we'll turn off that, and let's take this into key shot. Here we go. So what we're going to do is kind of take a look at these side by side. So the one on this side here, and you know what? Let's just make that, no, candy apple blue. There. So if we look at these and we look at the highlights, you know, they kind of flow very similar. But now let's take a quick look at our reflections. Environment, environment, environment. Let's go outdoors. There we go. It's not a good environment. I'm not getting what I want to come out of this here. It's not showing very well. It's not showing me the drasticness that I wanted to show you. Because right now, if I'm looking at this, it all looks just beautiful. There, I guess, there's where we, hold on, let's, Come on. Give me a second here. That's not showing a very good resolution. So it's not really showing me what I want. I don't know why this is so jagged though. Bear with me. Oh, okay. So in theory, what I'm trying to show you there we go. I guess that does a little bit better of a job. Where you can kind of see it goes in and it's got that hard edge. So there we go. There we can kind of see it there. You've got that shadow where over here it kind of goes away. So let me try to get that view in here. Let's go back to just having a normal view. Let's go lighting, environment, background color. Yeah, this isn't doing what I wanted to show it. It's not doing a very good job, so trust me, when you start modeling complex things, you want that. I don't know why, but it's not really showing up, so I don't know if it's just not drastic enough changes in the surface or what. Is anyone seeing any benefit between the two at all? I guess there I can see a little bit where it's more plush and harsher there. Let me try something here. Yeah, it's just a tiny bit. Here, let me just go to, I don't want paint. Let me get with metal here. So I guess here you can kind of see it a little bit differently, where in there it's the solid edge all the way across, and then it goes to the dark, where in here it's got a little bit more gradation, a little more transition. And this will be something that will help to show it too here. If I go into curvature to show the difference between the curvature between the two, here you can see the rate of change on curvature. It's black and then blue. What that means is that the rate of curvature changes right at that line, period. If we go to the other side, same thing, it goes right there. Now here, there's a little bit of a flow going in between there and there. So now let's see, it may be because, let me try something here. I'm going to edit this a little bit. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull that curvature down further. Oh, not that much further. So here you can see that the curvature is going further down. I've controlled that. And now it's transitioning at this point here and here. With this, what I can do is I can tighten that radius up a little bit. Oh, you know what? That's what I probably should have done. Let's just do this. So we can tighten this up a little bit here. This is another way I'll show you later to get radiuses and transitions without actually having to draw curves. So again, here you can kind of see we're a little bit similar in size, but you can still see that if you can read the numbers, curvature here is 0.0, or radius of curvature is 0.46, 0.1 or 0.12, or sorry, 12, and then back to 22. Where here, if I scroll down through, there's more changes. It goes from, 121, 19, 8, 4, 3. So let me bring this back in and see if this is going to give us a different look here. I think the problem may have been that I wasn't doing something drastic enough between the two. Go back to environment. Oh, well, that's ugly. This really isn't reading well. Okay, we're going to say we're going to move on from that because I'm not getting it to do what I want. But if you look at what I did yesterday, the video, you'll see I did a much better job of demonstrating it. Now, one thing I do want to show you is, let me open this up, because just by using radiuses, or curvature continuous radiuses versus 3-point arcs, you can achieve a completely different look than you do between the two. And again, one isn't good, one isn't bad. Both styles are good. You may like one more than other, but what works for you? So here, both these objects started as a block. Both these objects, the radiuses were applied in the exact same direction. So if I come back here, I've got the box. And I'm going to go through and do the first one here. So there we've got the full round. We're going to make a quick cut. We're going to make a quick raised middle section. We're going to toss in these corner radiuses. And these are all curvature continuous. Come in here, we'll do a fillet. Come on. So now we've got it wrapping over here. And you can kind of see what we've got here is a little bit of a pillow effect. See how soft that is? We'll drop in the next radius, which will be down in here. And now we're getting that double highlight pillow into another smooth pillow. It's not a harsh highlight. We've got the top one. You can see because of my conditions, it's getting a little bit uglier in there. So before we actually do anything, I just want to fix that up so it's a little bit prettier. And the reason, again, is I was asking for something too big to wrap around that corner. Usually when I'm doing things, I never want to see those triangles because that will show up in my models. When I print them, when I paint them. That. Here, let me just do this. I shouldn't be messing with this because we had problems yesterday. Okay, I'm just going to dump a circular one in there. That should work. Okay. So then we're going to dump in the bottom fillet here. And again, these are all using the curvature continuous radiuses. Now, I'm going to dump in, and the radiuses are almost identical sizes as well, but these are all just going to be the 3-point arcs. Now, ideally, you want this in your head first. You don't start, you can start playing with these as exercises. Maybe that's what I'll do. I'll give you guys an exercises of 4 different things and have you guys all model up separate different radii. Yeah, there we go. We got our next lesson or assignment. So you can see I'm taking the exact same approach to build this. But you can see as we go, you know, a little bit tighter highlight, a little bit fatter. You know, the way it walks around, more consistent, more even. Here it pools and then speeds up around the corner, where here it stays kind of consistent all the way through. Now normally I would never do absolutely every single radii as curvature continuous. Okay, sorry about that. My 85-pound princess doesn't like to get her paws wet, so it takes her 4 times to go out before she builds up the courage to go to the bathroom on the grass. So now even in here, you can see this highlight, you know, it's kind of makes it a wash in here, where these ones, we've got the pillowed edges. Now, I don't like this form where I ended. I would have spent a lot more time playing with it, but I just wanted to show the demo, as in, if you just slap in the exact same radiuses, but one are curvature continuous and one are just 3-point radiuses, you can achieve a completely different look. We'll dump that on there. And you can see, you know, this starts as a, if we look at this from a front view, here the curvature continuous, it comes down and it adjusts and it wraps around. Now I can control this on how much that goes and how much radius is in there. I don't have as much control over here because it's just a simple, hey, I've got my 1 point, I got my 2nd point, and then I've got my center point. So if I come in, hold on 1 second. I did too. I closed out the other one without saving. Oh well. C'est la vie. So now definitely when we come in and we take this into, whoops. Open recently. When we bring this into Keyshot, where we can really see the highlights differences, now you can see a drastic difference between the two. One is purely using curvature continuous radiuses, which means that it follows the edges a little bit before going into the radii. So really, the shape of the radii is determined by the edge it's being built off of. Where here, it doesn't matter what this shape looks like or what this edge looks like, it's just going to do your 3-point arc. You can see here with the larger radiuses, you're getting rounder, more full ones. Down in here, and you can kind of see how things, come on. Like even along here, we've got the tight highlight, we've got a larger highlight reflection. Same as here where we've smoothed them all out, but this one, we created it where it's still raised, but now we've clearly got 2 highlights because we defined that this curvature comes down here and is going to drop straight and then go down in here, but we're still not going to see any transition edges because everything is curvature continuous. Over here, we still may see some, but it doesn't really show up. Well, here you can kind of see that edge, and you can see that edge there. that edge there. Now the reflections are making it hard to read. Because over here, as you look at it, that highlight rolls right over. There's not a hard stop. But you can also see again, you know, just by controlling your radiuses, that you can get drastically different results. Or if you sketch something up like this, when it comes time to model, knowing what radii you need to use to get those. You know, if I want these, if I want a pinpoint highlight here, but I still want the radius to wrap around down here, I don't want just a 3-point arc, then what I can do is I can have that surface curve up, get tight here where I want the radius, and curve over, so it's not a hard edge. You know, where on here, let's say I want that hard edge, you know, I can do this and get that look. But it's a more consistent radius from start to finish. So we've got 15 minutes. That's kind of what I wanted to show. It's somewhat of a duplication of yesterday. I think I touched on a few different things. Maybe just kind of